The time is precisely 1:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News edited by Ramesh Piris and read by Chandima Veerakorn. Headlines. The expeditious vaccination drive continues at 126 vaccination centres in all districts. More restrictions to be enforced in the Western Province. The Ministry of Health confirms rise in the number of positive coronavirus cases daily amid the discovery of the newly identified highly transmissible COVID variant Epsilon. The Airport and Aviation Services Sri Lanka Private Limited announces an installation of a rapid PCR testing facility at the BIA. The vaccination card made mandatory in public places from the 15th of September. Pakistan assures unconditional support to Sri Lanka. The Philippines extends ban on travellers from Sri Lanka. In news overseas, the Indian Prime Minister praises healthcare workers as the country celebrates 75 years of independence. In sports news, it's cricket. England captain Joe Root's magnificent knock marks his 5th Test century of 2021. The expeditious vaccination drive continues today at 126 vaccination centres. All districts to administer the vaccine against COVID-19. In addition, the Sri Lanka Army mobile vaccination rollout continues to be in operation. Accordingly, AstraZeneca, Sinopharm, Moderna, Pfizer and Sputnik V vaccines are being administered against COVID-19. The Health Minister, Pavitra Devi Vanyarachi, says more restrictions made to be enforced in Western Province. She told heads of media institutions that the existing health guidelines will also be gazetted tomorrow. The Health Minister said that all the health guidelines issued by the Director General of Health Services will be made law through the Extraordinary Gazette Notice. The Minister remarked that a new set of guidelines will also be issued, especially for the Western Province. Another 822 COVID-19 cases have been detected today in the country, raising the number of confirmation infections to 351,515. Accordingly, 3,245 coronavirus cases have been detected in Sri Lanka today. The epidemiology unit of the Ministry of Health said 38,235 persons are currently receiving treatment for coronavirus at several facilities across the country. Earlier today, 2,717 persons who recovered from COVID-19 were discharged from hospitals, raising the number of recoveries in the country to 307,345. 3,179 suspected COVID-19 cases are also under medical observation at present. Sri Lanka's coronavirus death toll is currently at 5,935. Meanwhile, another variant of coronavirus, Epsilon, which was first identified in California in 2020, has reached closer to home. The highly transmissible COVID variant has been recently detected in Pakistan, making it a cause of concern for India, which shares its borders with the country. Researchers have said that the Epsilon strain of COVID-19 is resistant to all available vaccines. The vaccination card has been made mandatory when entering public places from 15th September. The head of the National Operations Centre for Prevention of COVID-19 Outbreak, Army Commander General Shavendra Silva, said that the vaccination card will also be mandatory in places like hotels and restaurants. Persons without vaccination cards confirming that they have received both doses of the vaccine will not be allowed to enter public places. Meanwhile, 309,559 individuals were vaccinated against COVID-19 in Sri Lanka yesterday. According to data of the Epidemiology Unit, 4,524,810 individuals in total have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19 in Sri Lanka. Pakistan assured it will continue to extend unconditional support to Sri Lanka at all fora. The High Commission of Pakistan and the Pakistani community in Sri Lanka celebrated the 75th Independence Day with traditional fervour and resolve to make Pakistan a strong, dynamic, progressive, tolerant and democratic Islamic welfare state. The High Commissioner of Islamic Republic of Pakistan in Sri Lanka, Major General Muhammad Saad Khattak, hosted the national flag of Pakistan in vibrant and colourful ceremony at the Pakistan High Commission in Colombo. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Moving on with the local stories, the Philippines has extended a ban on travellers from Sri Lanka until the end of August. President Rodrigo Duterte, upon the recommendation of the Inter-Agency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, extended the travel restrictions imposed on travellers from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, United Arab Emirates, Oman, Thailand, Malaysia and Indonesia. The extended travel ban came amid the threat posed by the more infectious Delta coronavirus disease variant that was first detected in India. In support of the ongoing vigorous vaccination campaign against COVID-19 undertaken in Sri Lanka under the leadership of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the Sri Lanka High Commission in Kenya has arranged a consignment of an initial order of 2 million syringes from a WHO pre-qualified company in Kenya to be sent to Sri Lanka. The AD syringes of 0.5 milliliter specification manufactured by the Revital Healthcare Limited in Kenya are considered to be of high quality that complies with WHO standards and conditions. The High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to Kenya, Velupillai Kannanathan, accepted the first consignment of 800,000 syringes and facilitated its dispatch to Sri Lanka by Sri Lankan Airlines. This is the first time that a COVID-19 related essential item produced in Kenya is being sent to Sri Lanka to support the current inoculation drive in Sri Lanka. The second Kumbal Perahara of the Kandy Asala Perahara took place in the streets last night. The sacred casket was carried by the majestic Tusker Indiraja. The third Kumbal Perahara is scheduled to take to the streets tonight. To end the local news, the headlines again. The expeditious vaccination drive continues at 126 vaccination centres in all districts. More restrictions to be enforced in the Western Province. The Ministry of Health confirms rise in the number of positive coronavirus cases daily amid the discovery of the newly identified highly transmissible COVID variant Epsilon. The Airport and Aviation Services Sri Lanka Private Limited announces an installation of a rapid PCR testing facility at the BIA. The vaccination card made mandatory in public places from the 15th of September. Pakistan assures unconditional support to Sri Lanka. The Philippines extends ban on travellers from Sri Lanka. That ends the local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
On the main news story, the Airport and Aviation Services Sri Lanka Private Limited announced that a rapid PCR testing facility has been established at the Bandaranaike International Airport to conduct rapid PCR tests on passengers travelling to the United Arab Emirates. The service was made available to facilitate passengers who are mandatorily required to carry a negative rapid PCR report obtained within 4 hours prior to the scheduled departure to enter their destinations in the UAE. The passengers who require the mandatory rapid PCR test report should bring their passport, NIC and the air ticket. The cost for the rapid PCR test will be 7,500 rupees and the payment can be made at the airport sample collection site by cash, credit cards or through a bank transfer prior to obtaining the services. That ends the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, The Department of Registration of Persons has decided to suspend all public services of the department until further notice. The department said in a statement that several of its officers had been diagnosed with COVID and others had been identified as associates. Accordingly, it has been decided to close the head office and all provincial offices to the public from tomorrow until further notice. That ends Watchlight. Moving on to world news, the headlines. The Indian Prime Minister praises healthcare workers as the country celebrates 75 years of independence. The Taliban control all key cities except Kabul in the Afghan conflict. Deadly 7.2 magnitude earthquake kills over 300 in Haiti. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi praised healthcare workers and scientists for helping India fight COVID-19 as the country celebrates 75 years of independence. Mr. Modi also paid tributes to those who died of the virus, saying the pain of losing them will stay with us forever. He added that the country fought the virus with extraordinary pace. Tensions are rising in the Afghan capital Kabul as the Taliban continue their rapid advance towards the city. The militants seized the eastern city of Jalalabad early today, leaving Kabul as the only major city still under government control. It followed the capture yesterday of the government's northern bastion of Mazar-e-Sharif, and the collapse of government forces has left President Ashraf Ghani under growing pressure to resign. A powerful earthquake has struck the Caribbean nation of Haiti, killing at least 304 people and injuring more than 1,800. The 7.2 magnitude quake hit the west of the country last morning, toppling and damaging buildings including churches and hotels. The Prime Minister Ariel Henry said there was extensive damage and declared a month-long state of emergency. The U.S. Geological Survey said the epicenter of Saturday's quake was about 12 kilometers from the town of St. Louis du Sud. The tremor was felt in the densely populated capital of Port-au-Prince, some 125 kilometers away, and in neighboring countries. To end the world news, the headlines again. The Indian Prime Minister praises healthcare workers as the country celebrates 75 years of independence. The Taliban control all key cities except Kabul in the Afghan conflict. Deadly 7.2 magnitude earthquake kills over 300 in Haiti. That ends the world news.
Development News is brought to you by
Quality matters than price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melba RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melba RB500, number one in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
Win lakhs and lakhs with CIB Janajaya. 40% discount for your bills till 15th of August. 6 hand tractors at the Grand Row. CIB Janajaya.
And on development news, as part of the Naval Social Responsibility initiatives, 2 seawater RO units were installed on Kites and Mundaiteu Islands in the Divisional Secretariat of Velanai, Jaffna. The installation of these seawater reverse osmosis plants were initiated by the Ministry of Health, where the manpower and technological know-how for the project were enabled by Sri Lanka Navy. Accordingly, the 2 new facilities which have precisely been established at Ambikai Nagar in Kites and Anai Vilantan in Mundaiteu will be able to fulfill the safe drinking water requirement of the islanders from now on. That ends development news.
Development News was brought to you by
Quality matters than price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melba RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melba RB500, number one in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
Win lakhs and lakhs with CIB Janajaya. 40% discount for your bills till 15th of August. 6 hand tractors at the Grand Row. CIB Janajaya.
Moving on to sports news, it's cricket. On day 3 of the second test, England captain Joe Root made a magnificent 180 not out against India at Lord's, his second 100 in the space of 8 days. It was his 5th test century of 2021. Only Dennis Compton and Michael Vaughan have made 6 in a year for England. Root's sublime innings helped England to 391 all-out, a lead of 27, leaving the game tantalizingly poised with 2 days remaining. Meanwhile, Pakistan tour of West Indies at Kingston, Jamaica on day 3. And despite the rain, Pakistan, led by Babar and Rizwan earlier, extended their lead to 124 with 5 wickets in hand. Babar on 54 and Fahim on 12 runs will be looking to build upon their handy 39-run partnership when play commences later today, 30 minutes early. That ends sports news.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
Expo 2020 Dubai, one of the largest and most prestigious global events of its kind, originally set to take place last year, is now rescheduled to be held for a period of 6 months starting from the 1st of October until the 31st of March 2022. Sri Lanka will be participating at a specially designed and dedicated pavilion in the Opportunity District of the Expo Village. The pavilion, with its water-based theme, was designed by a team from the University of Mortua. Sri Lanka Tourism has built a coalition in presenting Sri Lanka at Expo 2020 Dubai in partnership with the Sri Lanka Embassy in UAE and the Consulate in Dubai, Gem and Jewellery Authority, Export Development Board, Sri Lanka Tea Board, Luxella, Board of Investment, Port City, Sri Lankan Airlines and the National Chamber of Exporters. That ends Business News.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic news, courtesy of...
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
On economic news, Sri Lanka stocks recovered on Friday, a day after they fell around 1.5% as the government announced it will not go for a COVID lockdown. The Colombo All Share Price Index edged up 0.19% or 15.13 points to close at 7,996.04, while S&P SL20 Index of more liquid stocks gained 0.14% or 4.06 points to close at 2,993.08. Sri Lanka stocks have been on the rise partly due to record low interest rates, excess liquidity in money markets, and some businesses being disrupted due to import controls. That ends economic news.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
And finally, on the weather report, The Meteorological Department forecast showers in the western, Sabaragamuwa, central and northwestern provinces and in the Galle and Mathura districts. The Met Department predicts showers or thunder showers to occur at several places in the northern, eastern and Uva provinces in the afternoon. Fairly strong gusty winds up to 40 to 50 kilometers per hour can be expected in the Hambantota district. That ends the weather report.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
And to conclude this bulletin of news, the headlines again. The expeditious vaccination drive continues at 126 vaccination centres in all districts. More restrictions to be enforced in the Western Province. The Ministry of Health confirms rise in the number of positive coronavirus cases daily amid the discovery of the newly identified, highly transmissible COVID variant Epsilon. The Airport and Aviation Services Sri Lanka Private Limited announces an installation of a rapid PCR testing facility at the BIA. The vaccination card made mandatory in public places from the 15th of September. Pakistan assures unconditional support to Sri Lanka. The Philippines extends ban on travellers from Sri Lanka. On news overseas, the Indian Prime Minister praises healthcare workers as the country celebrates 75 years of independence. And in sports news, it's cricket. England captain Joe Root's magnificent knock marks his 5th Test century of 2021. With that, we conclude this bulletin of news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.